We're here today on RealAgriculture.com. We're with Larry Hill. Larry is the chairman of the board of the Canadian Wheat Board. Welcome today, Larry.
Good afternoon.
Okay, Larry, let's talk about the CWB elections. There is I guess, a proposed change regarding who could and or couldn't vote in CWB elections. Can you talk a little bit about that from the Wheat Board's perspective?
It's something that we've been looking at for a long time, and as a director, it's a difficult thing to be making a decision on how you get elected. So we in 2005 took a pretty serious look at the review panel that came up with a whole series of recommendations around wheat board elections, and at that time our board of directors did support that package of changes, and it was a very comprehensive package, by the way. And part of that package was a threshold for deliveries of 40 tons. A little different than what's in the current legislation, but it was there at that time.
So basically, the proposed changes are to those that you have in the last 3 years. You have to have delivered at least 40 tons of one of the 7 major crops, just not board grains, but one of the 7 major crops one time in the last 3 years. Is that correct?
That's to be eligible.
Okay.
But you have to remember here that the voters list is based on CWB permit books. And if you've grown some of the other grains and don't have a wheat board permit book, well, you obtain a ballot by a statutory declaration or some other method that the Minister of Agriculture has the power to decide about, and that's how you would get your ballot. But if you grow 40 tons in the year of the election or any of the 2 previous years and deliver them to wheat board, then you would automatically get a ballot.
So do you have any idea, or have you guys run the numbers at all, if this did happen? And of course, should note this isn't a for sure thing. It's still kind of it's going through the process. But if this were to happen, do you have an estimate on how much the voter list or eligible voters would be reduced?
There's no concrete analysis that we have, so we don't really know the answer to that question. Mm-hmm. And the other question that we don't know the answer to is whether it's all the large producers or small producers that vote. So as a director who has run in 3 elections and called quite a few people, you did run into some smaller producers that say, well, I've got my land leased or whatever, and I let my renter do the voting and that sort of thing. So you really don't know for sure how many of these producers that would be caught up in this 40-ton delivery qualification that actually do vote.
Right. Okay. And so I guess what is the wheat board's position on this? Obviously, it involves the wheat board's kind of is obviously a big stakeholder in this. Does the board have a position on this pending change?
Well, we have passed a motion in support of the change, and certainly it wasn't an easy decision at our board level. We've got the fact is recognized that there are very many producers that have different ideas on this. So usually that's something that comes out in the Ag Committee comments, where producers that have different points of view make their points known.
So you had mentioned, of course, as not only you a director, but I guess you're also the chairman. So you would be talking to a lot of farmers across Western Canada. What are some of the things you're hearing? Because I think I've sort of settled in my own head the reasons for this, but I'm sure you've heard some reasons to not move in this direction. Can you kind of elaborate on some of those ideas or concepts you're hearing as far as why this wouldn't be a good idea?
Well, it basically boils down to whether or not you believe in the concept of a threshold for voting, and if you accept it, well, then you're okay with it, and if you don't, well, you're not okay with it. I think it just is basically as simple as that.
But what are some of the reasons why you wouldn't be for threshold voting? Like, can you give us an example of where that doesn't really, where somebody is feels strongly enough to say this isn't a good idea?
Well, one of the examples I've heard is that you only get one vote regardless of how much income tax you pay. So putting a cap on wheat board elections is different from the canola elections. It doesn't matter how much canola you grow. If you grow any, you get the vote. And if you grow wheat, you don't get the vote in the canola election.
Right.
So there's such a wide gamut of opinion out there that it's hard to just nail it down to any one thing. But
well, I'm sure some of the issues also have to do with renting. So if you crop share, you would be still eligible, provided you grew, met the growing requirements. But just a cash rent situation would put you outside of the eligibility. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. You have to either have delivered it, produced it, or be entitled to the production of 40 tons. So there are several ways that you would get captured.
Okay, Larry, I guess to wrap up here, what is kind of the timeline from your perspective that we can expect? Where does this go from here? Obviously, we're reading about it on different newspapers, sites like RealAgriculture.com. What kind of timeline can we expect?
Well, the wheat board elections are going to be held this fall in all of the odd-numbered districts. So from that point of view, it's important to have clarity to the rules around the election. And therefore, if there's going to be any change, the sooner farmers know about the change, the better. And certainly, I think as directors of the wheat board, we would like to know by the end of June what kind of rules we're going to operate under in the wheat board elections, because we have to give the instructions to the election coordinator as to how to operate the election.
Right, and I guess finally, what brought us to this point from your perspective? Was the whole situation on the barley decision on barley, or did that kind of bring this to a forefront, or what kind of got us to this point?
I really don't know. It's the government's initiative, so they're the ones that have brought this forward. And I think it's just basically it's a government initiative where they see that they would like to make this change, and they brought it up.
Okay, Larry. Well, I really, really appreciate you joining us today, and hopefully we can chat again in the future. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome, Sean.